Commentary Booth is a show for media lovers by media lovers just like you. If you want to support the show, go to pariomagazine.com.au. The other show actually got me to sit down and watch regular TV, which is very rare. Free-to-air TV, Underbelly Vanishing Act. What did you think of this new installation in the Underbelly franchise?
I didn't mind it as much as what I think you hated it. Like, the Underbelly is one of those, again, it's one of those shows that I think, like Halo, just by the name, it's going to get me to watch it. Watching all the different series and things, I found it really, really good. As far as Australian television goes, I think it's probably one of the best things we've ever produced as a consistent mini-series style show.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the problem with this series following, it's Melissa Caddick, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, and following her story, I think, and for people that don't know the story of her being that she basically got caught making a Ponzi scheme, suckered $40 million plus out of her friend's family and a bunch of her so-called clients, that she just would take their money, pretend to invest it, and basically just spend it on cars and her hairdresser boyfriend and herself and dresses and clothes and all sorts of stuff, who then basically got caught, went missing, and then her foot washed up inside of a shoe, sort of 10 hours south on the south coast, only a year ago.
Yeah, her foot washed up, I think, 2021 or something. Yeah, she was investigated. Yeah. The investigation started on November 12, 2020, and then her foot showed up in February 2021.
Yeah, so I mean, it's super recent, and I think that's probably where the problem started with this. It's a story that really kind of encapsulated the country. Like, you don't often have a foot wash up inside of a shoe from someone that just got caught in this massive financial crime. So I think immediately you're going to suck people in with that story. But I think the problem that you might have had, that I did have a little bit with the show, was that there's still so much mystery surrounding what happened to her, where they're not sure if it was a suicide, because she obviously lived quite close to the Gap, which is a massive cliff in Sydney that's pretty well known for people committing suicide off of, or whether somebody got her for what she did to their money, which wouldn't surprise me considering the amounts of money she was working with. I think she'd taken upwards of $4 million from individual clients. So that's a potential that someone's come out to get her, or whether she had enough money and enough forethought, I guess, to make a giant escape plan and, I guess, sever her own foot as a big red herring. But I guess the problem at the end of all that is that, as far as Underbelly and a show is concerned, compared to all the other Underbellies that they'd made, they knew what happened in all the other Underbellies. They're completed stories. And in this scenario, they just went with a story that they weren't quite sure about, and they just made up potential endings and left it open-ended, which they're going to have to do because they don't know anything different to anybody else in the country. So, yeah, I mean, it did frustrate me, because the bits that I liked about the other Underbelly shows was that it gave you facts and it made you go, wow, that actually happened, or wow, that actually happened in Sydney, in Darlinghurst, or in Melbourne, or wherever it happened. But this one, you're going, wow, I wonder if that happened. And it got frustrating. It was only a 2-episode show, but by the end of it, yeah, the open-endedness to it was a bit frustrating.
Yep. Yeah, that was sort of my big problem, where the ending just... Essentially, it felt like I watched these 2 episodes, and the last 10 or 15 minutes, they were basically just like, oh yeah, that 2 or 3 hours you just watched, that was just totally made up bullshit. That you've just wasted 2 hours of your life watching this show that is essentially just a totally made up story, but we're portraying it as factual. Like,
yeah,
I think of, like, the Underbelly show, I think of as, obviously it's a dramatization, but it's based on actual facts throughout the entire story. So like that very first season of Underbelly about the gangland wars in Melbourne, that's still the top tier for me. The King of the Cross, the John Ibrahim one, that was also really good in my opinion. But this one, like I said, because it is sort of still so recent, like we said, it's not even 2 years ago, or basically almost exactly 2 years ago now, that this all sort of went down. It's still in the courts. Like there's still people fighting to try and get some of their money that has been seized by the government back. So I feel like that probably played a part in what they could and couldn't show in this series. And thank God it was only 2 episodes. If this had been 8 or 10 like the other series have been, I'd have been even more pissed off. But yeah, I think because it's still in the courts, there would have been a lot of stuff that they couldn't show. They did have to fabricate a bit. But just the way it was presented, like I wouldn't have minded if they said, yes, we're going to sort of pose all these questions of this is potentially what happened. But the way that sort of first episode and 80% of the second episode put it out there, that they're like, this is what happened, then this happened, then this happened, and then this character got involved, and then at the end it's like, hey, that guy didn't even exist. We just totally made that guy up. I was like, what the?
Yeah.
I was so annoyed at the end of this show.
The other thing that I really learned from watching that Underbelly in comparison to, like you're saying, the King's Cross one with John Ibrahim and the Melbourne ones, is that there's nothing sexy about a Ponzi scheme. Like the other Underbellies had that real element of like danger and crime and like, I guess, a bit of violence and stuff mixed in there. But the very first episode where they had the scene of the hairdresser husband DJing
in their house. Oh my God, that was so cheesy.
It was the most cringe-worthy scene, and Underbelly isn't known for that. Like it's supposed to be about danger and cutting people with switchblades, and it was literally just a weird dude DJing badly in his dining room. Like it was, yeah, really awkward. And then I think at the end as well, they didn't just take, I guess it's not really a spoiler because there's no answer to what happened to Melissa Caddick, but that scene at the end where they were kind of taking you on the run of she had her foot severed and now she's on a yacht with a prosthetic foot. They just really took it too far in some weird directions, and it was very, very strange. The story suckered me in. I wasn't as angry as you about it. But yeah, it was definitely cringeworthy and strange in parts.
Yeah, like the end did sort of pose the 3 sort of main theories that people have of, yeah, she just freaked out and committed suicide, or the one where they just made up the dude that sort of she took a ton of his money as to help him launder the money. That one really annoyed me. I was like, well, I very much doubt that's the case. And then the third one where they were like, oh yeah, she just escaped, but she cut off her foot as, like you said, a red herring. But like her body has never been found. That they've only found a foot, and you can survive without a foot. So I understand why that's a pretty big theory. But yeah, just very annoyed at it. And like you said, those first few seasons of Underbelly, like the Melbourne one in particular, that's all about people like assassinating each other and murdering people in front of kids. Like that is a scary season where it's like, that is full on, I can't believe some guy shot 2 people in their car at their kid's footy game. Like,
yeah.
Whereas this one is kind of like, this one's just a lady that pretended to be a financial advisor, swindled a pool cleaner, took all his money, and then took all his family's money and her friend's family's money, and then just doctored up reports essentially to say, hey, we invested this much and you got this much back. But the only way she could ever pay those people back that money was if she kept getting more and more people involved.
I don't know, like mind-boggling that someone could do that to their, like her own parents, her best friend. Like, pretty outrageous.
Yeah, like I was stunned that she did it to her best friend and her parents, but it still was just kind of like, whatever. Some of the acting was really bad too.
Yeah.
Like you said,
It's not
the
the
DJ
DJ
boyfriend,
scene.
horrible. That was such a bad. That was like a rich guy, a rich producer looked at that and went, "This is what a music producer does, and this is how a DJ acts." I was like, "This is so bad."
Yeah.
And the ASIC investigator, the woman,
Yeah.
why was she so hostile?
Yeah.
Like she was just rude.
Yeah, I think that's because they were trying to make it more dirty and dangerous and gritty than it probably actually ever was. Like it was, I can't imagine them being much like that. Like, I can't really imagine the ASIC investigator listening to heavy metal in her Bluetooth headphones from the very first scene when you see her. And they were instantly trying to make it a bit more gangster and crazy than it probably was. But yeah, you bring up the acting. I think the person that I feel the worst for is her son, that's probably having this all dragged back up for him when it's still really quite fresh. Even the husband to some degree. I don't think in these situations that people pretend that they had no idea what was going on. And I'm sure people that are married to actual gangsters or drug dealers or whatever that are living some pretty high rolling lives that just have a lot of money coming in, but play dumb to where it comes from. I don't think you're completely innocent.
Just assume that they're
always.
They just assume their bricklayer partner is making millions of dollars. Like,
yeah, like I don't think that's ever a good excuse. But I mean, for a son who was born into that and had no opportunity to say yes, no, or otherwise to what was going on around him, to then have that dragged back through not only the court system at the moment. I know the house that he's living in is still that house, but it looks like they're going to seize that to obviously make some money for the people that were swindled by her. For him to be dragged through again and have a show of his mum publicized and it's not even ended and it's not even a very good storyline for a show, I think is pretty ruthless on Channel 9's behalf and of the Underbelly producing staff's behalf. It's, yeah, I know it rubbed me up a bit the wrong way to know that that's still all very fresh for him.
oh yeah, very like you said, his mum is still not technically dead. She's just missing at the moment.
Yeah.
Because until they find a body or definitive proof that she's dead, like you can live without a foot, so she could still be alive, and she's technically still just a missing person. Yeah, pretty rough on the kid, but yeah, it just felt like, especially with the ads that they had for the Sydney Morning Herald Channel 9 collaborative podcast, it felt like this show was purely an advertising part of their advertising marketing budget to sort of be like, let's put this show out and try and get people to listen to the podcast. Like, it just felt weird.
Yeah, you made me think just then. I was watching it as a stream off of the app on the Apple TV, but I don't know why, and I don't know what chance it happened, but the ad that popped up after that episode, whole thing had finished, like going underwater and all the rest of it, and the foot had been in the shoe decomposed. The very next ad instantly popped up was like the John West tuna ad where they were pulling things out of the ocean.
Oh God!
I was like, no, like, you can't have that come on right now.
That's bad timing.
Oh yeah, it didn't make me want John West tuna, that's for sure.
And yeah, like, because this is in the court, I was surprised that they even got away with airing this. Like, remember when that first Underbelly came out, there was all the controversy about, hey, what can we and can't we show? Like, I remember that first season didn't air in Victoria because it was still in the courts and they didn't want to influence juries. But I guess because this one is just going to federal court and is being heard by a judge, not a public jury, that's probably the loophole they got away with being able to show this. But it was just like, when they were advertising it, I was like, how are they going to do this? We don't know the answers. It's still in court. This is just asking for a lawsuit, I feel.
I think that just points to how black and white a lot of it probably is when you got financial records and again, how unsexy financial crime itself is, that they don't need a jury. There's probably not a lot going on. There's not much opinion involved in it. It's just very easily proven. She's taken this amount of dollars and spent it on this. I can't imagine once they're onto somebody that it's that hard for ASIC to work out where it's all gone, which also made me wonder about the money laundering scenario that they were trying to to make up. Like I can't see her being someone that could even launder her own money, let alone somebody else's.
Yeah, because she's, especially when this, was it George character, just gave her bags of cash. So she didn't even have a deposit stream coming in to be like, okay, this much came in and then this much went out. Like, it was just kind of like,
they made up story. It didn't make sense.
I'm just going to take this bag of cash down to the South Coast and go down there and pick out some money when I need some cash.
Yeah, and I don't know how she was expected to give that back to George as laundered money, you know? Like, as soon as they did it, I was like, well, surely that's already the problem that she's having.
Yeah, unless she actually... Well, she couldn't because she wasn't licensed. But unless she actually invested it the right way and got returns back and then maybe topped it up a bit with the Ponzi scheme money.
Yeah.
It was just... Yeah, the whole fake... I was very annoyed. At the end of the 2 hours, I was like, wow, my time watching Married at First Sight was better spent than watching this.
Big claim.
At least Married at First Sight was bloody entertaining. This was just a waste of my 2 hours. And it was a late
probably
night.
About the same amount of believability.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, you're Wigan, brah.
Oh my God. That guy. But, did you watch Married at First Sight?
My wife has 100% banned that show in our house.
That's right.
Yeah, absolutely hates it. Thinks it's the most stupid experiment on the planet, and that it devalues marriage. And you know what? I'm pretty much on her team. I think I can laugh at it a lot more than she can, but yeah, it's very trash TV.
Yeah, they hooked me in with the storyline of the girl that leaked the other girl's OnlyFans photo, and just like the revenge porn aspect of that. I was like, this is full on. These people are terrible human beings.
I don't understand how this many seasons in and this many violently failed marriages that
people still want to go on there.
Call themselves experts.
True.
You're clearly not an expert. You're just there for the drama.
You got a 20% hit rate. Like,
if I went to work and only 1 out of 5 kids that went into my class learned how to read, they wouldn't call me an expert.
Yeah, you wouldn't have a job anymore.
No, but they do.
That's a good point. I did see 2 of the guys from the show at a screening this week. That was interesting. I walked in, I was like, oh, I know that guy. No, I was just like, I know that guy. What? Oh, yeah, that's right. Weird. I think that's the only reason people go on this show now, too.
Yeah, a bit of notoriety, but it's very quick. Like, it's very 15 minutes of fame.
Yeah, unless like they manage to become one of the major plot lines and then they get some sort of radio gig out of it.
Yeah.
I think that's enough terrible crap for this week.
Quality things only next podcast.
Surely we can't do any worse.
I tried to get you to do June.
Yeah, you tried to get me to do June like 3 days out from recording with a 3-hour movie in the middle of the week. Thanks for that.
Well, if you didn't waste all your time on Underbelly, you would have had extra.
I know, right? I could have watched it on Sunday. I wish I had. I would have been able to go to bed earlier and would have been better satisfied because that was terrible.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, lesson learned.
Mm-hmm. What would be your top recommendation for the week?
Like I said, slow start, but I'm sticking with Halo. As a Halo fan, I can't complain for 20 odd years that it hasn't come out and then give up 2 episodes in. So I'm sticking with it.
Yep. Yeah, we might revisit that when it finishes and see how we feel once the full season's out. For me, my top recommendation is avoid Underbelly Vanishing Act like it's the plague or coronavirus. You don't want it. Alrighty. Thank you everyone for listening to the commentary booth. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe on podcast services and on YouTube. You can follow me on social media at JamieAppsMedia and at Pario Magazine. And you can follow Buddy on Instagram at a.b_CSEE.
Thank you.
The Commentary Booth is a fan-funded production of Jamie Apps Media. You can support the podcast alongside our magazine, Pario Magazine, on Patreon at patreon.com/Jamie Apps Media. The following people supported at the community support group level or higher, and you cannot fathom how incredibly appreciative we are for their support. Brian and June Hart, Blake Robinson, Rena Renee, Courtney Paulson, Darren Hatcliffe, Jackson Carr, and Tracy Apps.